to a quick overview of fiber optic cabling. So single mode v multi-mode. Single mode has a much narrow core in the middle, while multi-mode has a much broader. In multi-mode, there's multiple beams passing through the core, and in single mode, there's a single beam. Where in comparison, single mode only passes a single beam and at a much faster rate, and it gives you a much longer distance. And it's completely opposite in multi-mode. Multi-mode shoots multiple beams, gives a shorter distance with a shorter speed. And to tell the two different types of cables or two different types of modes, uh, typically a yellow cable is a single mode and aqua is multi-mode. And there's a few more differences listed below. So next we'll talk about the fiber components. So a typical LC end is what this diagram is showing. So we have the body, the ferrule, cladding and the core. So we'll start off with the body. So the body holds the ferrule in place, and then the ferrule itself is a cylinder that houses the main cladding and core. Ferrule is used to align the fiber connection. Cladding is a glass layer surrounding the core which prevents the signal in the core from escaping. And then the actual core is what the light passes through. Depending on multi or single mode, the core will be very narrow or thick. So just a quick side note, when working with fiber cables, to never bend the cable more than the angle shown in the diagram. So a bit like a tennis ball. If you do bend it, the chances are it will crack the cable, the core itself, and it might still work, but there'll be lots of errors on the link, so you'll probably most likely 100% have to replace that cable. So let's talk about fiber connectors. The two most common connectors right now we have are the LC and the MPO. So if you take the LC, it's a bit more simplified. So you have the RX and TX receiving and transmitting. So with the MPO, it's pretty much the same thing. So if you have 12 or 24, you divide it into 3. So the top one will be only 8 used to transmit and receive. The 4 in the middle won't be used. So next, let's talk about fiber transceivers, optics or modules they might be referred to sometimes. So the most two common ones is QSFP and SFP. SFPs only go up to 10 gig and QSFP start at 40 gig. And in the near future we'll be starting to use QSFP-DD, double density, and OSFP. Not so much of OSFP, but we'll cover that later on. And as you can see, we have different kind of connectors. So we have QSFP with MPO with LC direct attached. So basically you can't remove the modules in the end, so the whole cable has to be replaced. And then we have breakouts. So on one end it's a 40 gig, for example, and then it's broken down into 10 gig of SFPs. And then finally we have QSFP converters for SFPs, so they could be used into QSFP ports. So next we're talking about fiber cables. DAC is not a fiber cable, it's a copper cable, and DAC stands for direct attached copper, but it's going to be used in the future, so it's good to mention it here. So we'll start off with AOC. AOC stands for active optical cable, and if you get it in orange, currently it's at 40 gig, and the aqua color is the speed is 100 gig. And typically both these cables are multi-mode, and at the end you'll find a QSFP attached to these. So next we have PSM4 and PLR4. The cable for these is almost the same. You can't tell the difference other than its speed. So PLR4 is at 40 gig and PSM4 is at 100 gig. And they're both mostly used for connecting transceivers to transceivers or transceiver to patch panels. So as you can see, that green bit at the end, the MPO, that would be connected into a patch panel, and the other end would be to a switch. So now let's talk about DAC cables. DAC cables are between 2 to 5 meters long, and they currently are being used at 40 gig, and they go from your server to the top of the rack switch, and they're the uplink for the server. So next we have the network cabling topology. This is a very simplified topology that I've broken down in. So we have T0, T1 and then T2. So TOR stands for top of rack, Then more stands for middle of row, and then E stands for end of row. So EOR and MDF and RNG, they're almost the same in this simplified topology, but they'll be in different rooms and different locations in all. So with the Tor, you'll see a 40 gig uplink from the server to the switch. So finally, we're going to finish up with the 400 gig upgrade, with most big cloud providers are going to do, or some which have already started. So as you can see, currently the DAC that we use is a 40 gig, and then the AOC that we use, the fastest speed, is 100 gig. These are all going to be changing, and so the DAC will become a 100 gig DAC, and that will be 2 to 3 meters long, and then the AOC will run up to max 30 meters with a 400 gig length. So all these new adapters modules will be changing. So currently we have PSM4, that will become DR4 plus. AOC will stay AOC. PLR4 will become DR1 plus, and CWDM4 will become FR4. So next we have the two main new modules. So we have QSFP-DD, double density, and OSFP. OSFP was made in mind for 800 gig capabilities, so I don't think that will be used as much, but QSFP-DD will be used, and it can support 400 gig. So I think we'll see more of that in the data centers now.